Automatic Collision Avoidance Technology Team. It's NASA, it's the Air Force Research Labs, it's Lockheed Skunk Works, it's the United States Air Force. And our job was to mature the technologies to actually field a system that had been development for many years. And while we have backgrounds of where we came from, there was virtually no ego involved. Remember he talked about Bill Dana? No ego involved. All of us telling a story, collaborating together to mature a technology to was effectively the 97, 98% solution. Flawless. And then we put it into the F-16 and eventually introduced it into the fleet, and we told everybody. We have been to Russia, we've been to Sweden, we've been to India, we've been to southern France. We've been to every office in the United States, Air Force, Navy, I guess probably Marine Corps, we've been in Canada. We had been everywhere telling our stories. We'd had Aviation Week fly with us. We told everybody. It had been in the system, but it really hadn't caught on. And some of you know this story. It's a Dutch, Dane, Norwegian young pilot at Tucson, Arizona, doing 1v1 BFM. And he blacks himself out. 8.4 G, he blacks himself out. You're going to see it. And this is off the internet, so this goes viral. And he's going to die.
Fuel recover. Fuel recover.
His flight lead's screaming at him. You'll see the chevrons come in.
Fuel recover.
The jet pulls 9.1 G and saves him, and he flies home. And now it goes viral, and now everybody's talking about it. And we learned from this how to get out there and crowdsource and get everybody else to tell our story for us. And it is so effective that in the Joint Program Office for the F-35 in Washington, D.C., the United States Air Force test pilots start screaming that we have to have this in our 5th generation jet. It's not going to go until 2026, but we at Lockheed had looked on our own with our Skunk Works guys and tried to fit it in. And all of a sudden, from the bottom up, the U.S. Air Force test pilots are screaming for this. And ultimately, we advance it ahead 8 years into F-35. And as we look today, we've saved 14 F-16 pilots, 13 F-16s. You do that math. It's a two-seater in there. We have likely saves in F-35. We certainly have saves in F-22. And we've got it in the jet. And I'm working at Pax River at the time as we introduce it in F-35. And one of the young Marine Corps test pilots next to me writes a white paper. It goes to his Marine Corps buddies. It goes up the Marine Corps chain. And it is now going to be introduced in the legacy Hornet fleet, including in Canada, by next summer. And you're going to hear Mark Skoog talk next about a general aviation point to this. And it's an amazing story. It is a generational technical success, the greatest contribution to flight safety in 50 years. We have won every award in aviation related to this. We have socialized it and told everybody. And Rogers had no idea why I was going to put this thing in there. There's no link to anything. You know, and I'd taken a bunch of our 23 minutes time for me to talk about something. And none of this means anything until when? Until October of this year, when a two-seat EA-18G Growler of the United States Navy is doing a low-level route in Washington State and hits the ground in Mount Rainier, a big mountain there, on a low-level route. Two ship, the first guys pull up, the naval aviators in the back don't. 31 years old, both of them. I'll say female, but it's not relevant. They're naval aviators. 2 naval aviators dead that could have been saved with auto GCAS. It's 15 years after Mark Skoog and I started this revolutionary program that matured the technology. And a conscious decision by the leadership of the United States Navy and Naval Air Systems Command not to put it into the Super Hornet fleet. And I just told you it's going into legacy Marine Corps jets, not into the Super Hornet and Growler fleets. And now there are 2 31-year-old naval aviators dead, a hull cost of, I don't know, $100 million for a Growler. And oh, by the way, this is just over 2 years after the last fatality, which was a Super Hornet, single-seat Super Hornet, a guy who G-locked himself north of China Lake and killed himself. And when we talk about his example of 50 years ago and the organizational hubris back then of a program that didn't want to hear about a ham-fisted pilot and the lateral PIO of an F-16 and how nothing was done but punt the guy off the program, and now we see the same thing happen now. And it is astonishing, 50 years later, that we find, in this case, dead aviators because of this particular management hubris. And that's how we finish this, and that's how the story becomes relevant. Back